Well, Penn State's definitely not happy about this news. Five-star running back commit Kemon Spell is set to visit four other schools this fall, and you can probably guess which one of those schools made the list.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to Penn State football, and as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day, your daily source for all things Penn State sports. My name is Zach Seyko, and I am your host of the show, credentialed media member for both Penn State football and Penn State wrestling. Well, this was unexpected news. Penn State five-star running back commit Kemon Spell is set to take a few unofficial visits this fall. And everybody's probably wondering, what's the concern level here? Could he flip? Schools like Notre Dame and Ohio State have his attention. We're gonna go through all of it, get everybody's perspective here on what this means with Kemon Spell taking these visits. We're also going to talk about Penn State's blueprint to a national title run this season, because one college football expert is very high on Penn State and absolutely believes that Penn State is following that blueprint. So he agrees with what we've talked about on this show. Also finishing up, we'll wrap up with James Franklin getting some respect by ESPN in a coaching ranking. Some people might say that he's overrated there. That's what we'll wrap up with here on this show. I want to begin with Kemon Spell, obviously. And again, thank you to the everydayers, and let me know your thoughts down in the comment section as we jump into this topic. Kemon Spell taking these official visits. I immediately texted Brian to get his take on it. And don't worry, we're gonna get his full analysis later on in the week. Brian Smith, the recruiting expert here with the Locked On Podcast Network, for those who don't know. And Brian simply responded back with, well, he's a five-star player, and five-star players are typically going to take visits. It's par for the course. Okay. So Kemon Spell, I can understand wanting to take visits. But that's Penn State's whole philosophy, is that if you are committed, you're committed. You're all in. You're not interested in other schools. You are a Nittany Lion. So from Kemon Spell's perspective, because that's going to be the most important perspective at the end of the day, we'll get to Penn State in just a moment, and then what's Notre Dame's confidence level, Ohio State, because they have his attention. Kemon Spell is a rising junior. So he has plenty of time. Now it seems like he's locked into Penn State for the most part, but then why is he taking these visits, right? So from Spell's perspective, I don't blame him for wanting to visit other schools. I don't blame him for wanting to go to other high-profile football games. He's a five-star. These are going to be all expenses paid, right? So I don't blame a high school junior for wanting to go see Ohio State, Texas. Go and see Notre Dame. Go and see Alabama. Alabama's on this list as well. Florida State's on this list. They're kind of the outlier here, if you will. So those are the schools that he's going to unofficially visit in the fall. Ohio State and Notre Dame certainly seem like the most threatening competition. Alabama's an SEC school, for what it's worth, right? Florida State, like I said, that one's an interesting one. At the end of the day, high school players are going to be high school players. And in this day and age of college football, transfer portal, NIL, I don't think this is reflective necessarily of Kemon Spell, but commitment doesn't hold the same value that it did a while back. And it certainly hasn't for the most part, but particularly over these last 5 years, is that you see players flip, you see players transfer in, transfer out, 1 year, couple years, doesn't matter. There is so much player movement. If you are Penn State, though, you are not thrilled with this. So let's talk about the Penn State point of view, because he did commit very early. This is the five-star prospect. This is the headline prospect of your class of 2027. You don't want him taking visits. Penn State has a very strong stance on that. So I'm eager to see how this does play out, and I'll give you my prediction if I think he flips at the end of the day, because Notre Dame's going to push for him. I mean, Kemon Spell's talked about how Michigan, Tennessee, all these schools have really been pushing for him. Penn State doesn't want him taking these visits, especially to the likes of Ohio State. Notre Dame, and Kemon Spell's persistent. That man does not give up. Now, this is also worth pointing out. Seider did get Kemon Spell to commit initially to Penn State. This isn't a Stan Drayton commitment. Now, Stan Drayton was at the helm when Messiah Mickens and Kemon Spell both expressed verbally that their recruitments were shut down simultaneously. They went on the record. There's video footage that this happened. We're not crazy. They shut down their recruitments, implying that, hey, we're not taking any more visits. Official, unofficial, doesn't matter. But now that's gone to the wayside here. So Penn State's probably, definitely, not happy about this. It's not only the schools that are involved here, but it's after you make that verbal pledge. So there definitely has to be some mutual understanding. There probably was some sort of understanding. Again, I don't disagree with Kemon Spell having interest in going to these kinds of caliber of football games and just seeing everything. But you're also entertaining the opportunity, and that's where Penn State's really going to be upset, is you are committed and you're entertaining the opportunity that, well, what is Notre Dame going to do? Are they just going to allow you to stand on the sidelines and just take in the atmosphere and then go about their business? No. Kemon Seider is going to be recruiting you non-stop. Same thing with Ohio State, Alabama. Okay, Florida State, right? You get my point. It allows these schools to directly chip into Penn State's lead. So here's the bright side in all of this. Penn State still does lead in this recruitment. He hasn't decommitted. These are unofficial visits for what it's worth. Now, he's still a rising junior, so there is a lot of time for things to change. And like I said, he has gone on the record multiple times to just say that, imply that he's locked in, that his recruitment is shut down, all of that stuff. He seems very invested in Penn State. But again, you're taking these visits now. You have them planned. I think that Penn State is still in a good spot. My concern level, and Brian's concern level, he'll express this too, is that it shouldn't be that big of a deal at this point in time. 5-star players are going to be recruited by other elite schools. 5-star players are going to want to take visits, as Brian said in a direct text message to me. It's par for the course. This is going to happen. There's going to be interest from other schools, even if people are committed. But your word does have to hold value, right? That's what everybody is going to look back on here. Say that, well, Spell is committed. He's verbally expressed that his recruitment was shut down, and now he's taking official visits. And they are to schools that definitely do pose a threat to Penn State. And again, Kemon Seider got him to commit to Penn State before Seider ultimately went and accepted the same job over at Notre Dame as the running backs coach. So this isn't ideal. I'm not overly concerned, but definitely has my attention. This is a big deal. But I don't expect a flip necessarily. Again, a lot of that can change, and maybe we'll look back on this prediction and maybe it goes the way I don't expect it to. But Penn State does lead in this recruitment. That's my point, is that Penn State is still the leader. He's still verbally committed to Penn State. He did not decommit. He's taking unofficial visits. While not ideal and not what Penn State wants, they are still in the driver's seat. So my concern level with all of this, okay, well, there was no concern because he didn't have any visits set up, but now he does. I go, it's going to go up, right? I pointed it out. Ohio State and Notre Dame have an opportunity to chip away at Penn State's lead. So Stan Drayton has to make sure that this one gets across the finish line. Penn State, James Franklin, still need to prioritize Kemon Spell. And I'm not implying that they're not, but if this doesn't get your attention, I don't just take that for granted. Because again, you know that these schools, even the ones that aren't getting these visits, Michigan, Tennessee, they are not going to give up, to say the least. So low concern level, no red alerts, no alarms here, no alarm bells. I think Kemon Spell ends up staying committed to Penn State, but certainly worth watching, worth noting. All right, now let's bring it back to the present. As Penn State, they have the blueprint to win a national title this upcoming season. We are not the only ones. The everydayers, we've discussed this on this show. We know that Penn State has the blueprint, and a college football expert has laid it out and agrees with what we've said before. We're going to talk about what that blueprint is coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavors of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. And whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with your friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Now, let's be honest. Some days on the course or off of it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp, stay energized. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and can be used with other promotions. The code is not good on other subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5 Hour Energy shots today. One of the most well-known college football experts agrees with us, and what we've talked about on this show before is that Penn State has a blueprint, clearly, to get to the national championship. Joel Klatt, Fox Sports, color commentator, side Gus Johnson. You might like him, you might not. I do, for what it's worth. I think he's one of the best analysts in college football right now, okay? Whether you agree with all of his takes, I do think he was a little harsh on Penn State at points last season. However, he has really bought into this team. Now, is he guaranteeing that Penn State's winning a national title? I don't think really anybody is, but there is optimism, confidence, and a clear blueprint that Penn State can do it. We've talked about it. They are following the same blueprint that Ohio State followed a season ago, and Michigan. Now, the cheating accusations, allegations aside, Penn State mirrors the fact that they brought back the veteran quarterback. 2 running backs. Ohio State went into the transfer portal to get Quinshon Judkins, but you see where I'm going with this, is that the backfield was full of superstars, veteran players that knew what they were doing. Again, different circumstances where Ohio State goes and gets Will Howard and Quinshon Judkins, but they built a superstar backfield that could go on that deep title playoff run. You keep the staff together, right? Jim Harbaugh, Michigan, that staff, there wasn't a lot of turnover. For Penn State, okay, we just talked about Seider and Tom Allen goes to Clemson, but you potentially get upgrades at both of those spots. Seider's a fantastic, phenomenal recruiter. But Stan Drayton might be the better coach at the end of the day. I think that's fair to say. Jim Knowles, objectively the best defensive coordinator in all of college football, if we're being conservative, top 3. That's an upgrade over Tom Allen. And somebody that, just from coaching against Penn State, knows how Penn State operates. You retain Andy Kotelnicki. You have consistency, continuity across the board. Terry Smith. Don't take that one for granted. That's not necessarily a given, but the longevity of someone like Terry Smith to be on the coaching staff. And then you have Anthony Poindexter. You have Phil Troutwine. Danny O'Brien goes into another year with Penn State. Marcus Higgins, I think, is starting to turn the corner as a recruiter and as a coach for Penn State. This staff is one of the best in the country. Might even be the best in the country. So those are similar elements to what Michigan and Ohio State had that Penn State now has. You have the backfield, you have the coaching staff, you have the consistency, you have the continuity, you have the veteran playmakers. This team's not, again, completely overhauled. Oh, well, they have potential. You know what Penn State has? Aller, Singleton, Allen, that's on offense. And then you go and make those additions in the transfer portal that are necessary but are going to be key. I'm talking about more the ones that have been later. Trevor Pena from Syracuse, Amari Campbell from North Carolina. Oh, Tamir Robinson leaves. That puts a hole in the linebacker depth chart. You go and get an instant starter in Amari Campbell. And again, not to mention, okay, so we're talking about the star caliber players that return for Penn State on offense. What about the defensive side? Deni Dennis-Sutton, Zane Durant. Everybody's saying Zariah Fisher is going to have a breakout season. Alonzo Ford comes back from injury. Tony Rojas is potentially set to break out for Penn State. Not just, take a step forward. We're talking about leaps and bounds forward for Tony Rojas. I think the same thing can apply for A.J. Harris. Zachy Wheatley returns when he could have gone to the NFL draft. You have Elliott Washington. You have Davian Collins. Defense is stellar. I think that's going to be a top 10 group again this season. And now you have Jim Knowles working with this group, right? That's the same caliber of when Manny Diaz was there. And look what Manny Diaz did with Penn State. But just didn't have the offense to carry what he was doing, right? To extend what he was doing. Because that was a national title type of defense. But the offense couldn't get the job done at the time. So Ohio State had that when Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, all those veteran players in the back end of the defense, they all came together with Jim Knowles, right? Jim Knowles is coming off of a championship win. He just went on that title run. He knows what it takes. It's top of mind for him. He brings that over to Penn State. The blueprint is there for Penn State to be a title contender, to go on a run and continue the streak by the Big Ten of winning national championships. I'm not trying to imply that it's easy. I'm not trying to say that it's guaranteed, but they're following the formula that has worked now for Michigan, despite some of the murky circumstances there, and definitely Ohio State. Again, veteran quarterback, 2 superstar running backs, coaching staff, consistency, continuity, all-star cast, and guys like you get like Trace McSorley to join the staff to just help be an analyst. It's all that experience. It's the little things that sometimes people overlook, where Trace McSorley, just his ability to win, and again, fresh. He hasn't been out of the game for a long time. He went to the pros. He wasn't removed from college too long ago. So he can relate to Drew Aller. That's going to be so monumental for Drew and the quarterback room as a whole, because he did it very recently and did it well. Just playing the quarterback position. I know that Drew Aller and Trace McSorley are 2 different types of quarterbacks, but playing quarterback, well, you still have to do things correctly to get your team to go forward, to get the offense moving. It's those things that Stan Drayton's been on national title teams. Jim Knowles, national title teams. And that continuity, that consistency, that momentum that you build. Andy Kotelnicki, I don't know that I would have as much confidence if Andy Kotelnicki ended up being the West Virginia head coach this season, and Penn State had to go and get 2 different coordinators. I wouldn't be as optimistic for them with their national championship odds. Penn State has a window here. This is the window. Joel Klatt sees it too. He laid it out. He thinks that, is he all in on Penn State? No, but he did rank them number 1. So he is definitely confident that they will be there, that they can be there. But just kind of like all of us, hey, there's confidence, there's optimism, but nobody's guaranteeing it, and Penn State isn't the overwhelming favorite, but they're certainly one of them. They're in the mix. And if they win, you can point to this blueprint that now potentially Penn State, but Ohio State and Michigan, it's retaining your team. It's retaining the foundation and having those veteran superstars to carry you through potentially a 17-game schedule. Now we'll finish up with this. James Franklin was ranked awfully high in an ESPN coaching ranking. People are going to say he's overrated. He's not that good. Well, let's debate that then, huh? We'll talk about that coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Numbers don't lie, as they say. And James Franklin is getting some respect from the analytics. ESPN, Bill Connolly, who works quite a bit with analytics, some people might be familiar with that name. He breaks out the SP rankings to, like I said, use the numbers to rate all of college football teams. And I'm not trying to say that this is gold, this is the end all be all, but it is another way to look at college sports. I like PFF. I like ESPN's analytics. I use them as resources to justify what I'm seeing with my own two eyes and try to make a little more sense of it. It's another angle to approach the game. And James Franklin is ranked fourth overall as one of the best active FBS coaches right now in the sport. Now, this list was broken up. There were 3 lists made, actually. The best football coaches over the past 20 years, the best active FBS head coaches with a minimum of 4 years. So coaches that have not been at the helm, like a Curt Cignetti or Marcus Freeman, who have not done 4 years just yet, they did not make that list. So, because I know people are going to say subjectively, well, Marcus Freeman beat James Franklin and outcoached him in the Orange Bowl, so therefore he is a better coach. Okay, that's fine. I understand that argument, but let's go through this list, right? Because Ryan Day's number 1. I think that makes a ton of sense. Josh Heupel of Tennessee, surprisingly, is number 2. And again, the analytics, this is based on a formula that says, who they are as a coach, plus their typical SP plus rating, their typical team analytics rating, and then you compare that number against the expectation. So it is how well are they performing with the resources that they have. And James Franklin is performing way above, not necessarily way above, but definitely above what Penn State has to offer as a football team year in and year out. They're not an elite team that's number 1 overall every single season, or they're very much in the mix for a national title contending type of team. But James Franklin still gets them to double-digit wins pretty much year in and year out. Aside from the COVID season, right? And then the year after the COVID season, Penn State, again, under James Franklin since 2016, has really been churning out double-digit wins, and that's where Franklin's getting a lot of credit here. So it's Ryan Day. Josh Heupel, I think, is the surprising one there at Tennessee, because I don't feel like Tennessee has achieved a lot, but I definitely do agree with that idea that, maybe Tennessee is performing better than expectations. Okay, the analytics say that, fine. I'm not going to disagree, because I have seen, you can make that argument to me, and I think that's valid. Kirby Smart is number 3. Franklin is 4th, as we pointed out. And it's interesting that he is rated higher than Dabo Swinney, because Dabo Swinney has those national championships. He has the appearances anyway, he has more appearances, and he has more victories than James Franklin. But then Clemson went on, a couple of those bad seasons, or just not where they weren't as relevant, right? Definitely well under expectations. So I think that's what's against Swinney, but he's in the top 5. So am I really splitting hairs here? Dan Mullen, in and out of coaching, but number 6. So some people, I can see why you might take issue with this list, because let's continue. Dan Mullen's at number 6 after being out of coaching and was, on TV talking about college football and not coaching it. Lane Kiffin, number 7 at Ole Miss. Brian Kelly, number 8 at LSU. Jeff Traylor at UTSA is number 9. Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State, number 10. Barry Odom at number 11. Here's the kicker. This one, Billy Napier of Florida at number 12. Kalen DeBoer, number 13, now at Alabama. I don't know about all that. I got to admit, if we're going off of what's been achieved here, Kalen DeBoer, I think, has been a better coach than James Franklin over these past. But again, they're taking all of this. It's a minimum of 4 years, but they're taking the whole resume. And I guess Kalen DeBoer got Washington to its peak and then took a bit of a step back at Alabama. But he did get them to the national championship. But again, James Franklin has shown that consistency of those double-digit wins. The numbers, it's not perfect. And you can go see this list on ESPN. Billy Napier at 12. I'm scratching my head. Everybody else is too. But I do think Kalen DeBoer 13 is a little questionable. Dabo Sweeney below James Franklin, even though it's one spot. Dan Mullen in the top 10 like that, just getting back into coaching like that. And then where does Marcus Freeman rank? Just for anybody that stuck around for this and is a Notre Dame fan that happens to be here, number 6 on the list, and I think that is something worth mentioning, because with what Marcus Freeman has been able to progressively achieve, but Notre Dame does give him everything to his advantage and them some, so I can understand maybe why he might be a little lower. Rhett Lashley's number 1. SMU doesn't have the greatest foundation. They progressively continue to improve, but I do think Lashley is outperforming what he's been given at SMU. Kurt Signetti, definitely at Indiana. That's number 2. G.J. Kinney at Texas State's number 3. John Summerall at Tulane. That's a good one at number 4. Dan Lanning at number 5 for Oregon. Marcus Freeman at 6 for Notre Dame. So those two coaches, you might argue, are in the top 5 easily right now in college football. They're 5th and 6th among coaches that are still new at their jobs and haven't had over 3 years of experience at their respective position. Wow. So, like I said, it's not the end-all be-all when it comes to analytics, but I can see why Franklin does make the top 5 based on who he's going up against. Again, I disagree with it a little bit. I think a Dabo Sweeney has absolute justification to be ranked above it. The difference is one spot, but come on, national titles do hold some value, right? But it's still respect to say that James Franklin is a top 10 caliber coach. Penn State has had a lot of success while he's been leading the program. It's not quite where everybody wants it to be, but you still got to give credit where credit's due. Now, this is the time to put up or shut up. National title or bust, in my mind. I think that's the case. So if James Franklin doesn't achieve those, then the conversation does change a little bit after this season. That is where we will wrap things up here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Appreciate you checking out this episode. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section, whether it's about recruiting, Penn State's blueprint for a national title run, or where you would rank James Franklin and these coaches in this list. Thank you to the Everydayers for making us a part of your regular routine. If you're not an Everydayer, become one. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest conversations around your favorite Penn State sports teams.